In this video we will be discussing PNF for the upper extremity, specifically D1 and D2, while also talking about rhythmic stabilization. So to start, we'll just kind of discuss the 9 guidelines for PNF. The first thing is you want to have manual contact with appropriate pressure. Appropriate pressure is essential to this, so not too hard, not too soft. Second, verbal cues, you want those to be short and quick to the point, usually 1 or 2 words. The third thing is we want there to be no pain, so none of these movements should be pain. If they are painful, we want to stop them. Next, the patient must be taught sequential movement patterns, so we'll walk them through the movement before we actually have them perform the movement. Next, the patient must look at the limb, so while we're walking them through the movement, they should be looking at the limb and while we're performing it as well. Next, the proper mechanics and body positioning for the clinician is very important. So we want to do that in such a way that we also don't get injured and it's not awkward for the patient in any way. Next, we want resistance to induce a maximal response. Again, not too hard, not too soft. We want that rotational movement at some point during the motion, and that's specifically at the mid-range of motion. And lastly, we want it to be timing to be good. So what that means is distal first. So the distal portion of the limb is what moves first. So we're going to start with some rhythmic stabilization. So I'll have the patient lie on her back. Again, no pain with this. So essentially what we're going to do is have the patient have an isometric hold up on the top. And what we're going to do is apply different forces in different ways, different directions, and they're going to try to keep their shoulders stable. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Good. A way to make this more difficult is to go distally in the limb, which will provide greater forces that they'll have to resist. So go ahead. Good. So that is rhythmic stabilization. Next, we will be diving into D1 and D2. So the nice thing about these movements is that the end portion is always going to be the opposite of what we were doing at the beginning. So we're going to start with D1. Again, what I'm going to do first is kind of guide them through the movement and then have them perform it on their own, and I'll add resistance. So for D1 at start, we want the shoulder extended, abducted, and internally rotated. Next, we want the elbow extended, which is good. Wrist pronated, so I'll go down like this. Then ulnar deviation, so down that way, perfect. And then the fingers are extended. So what we're going to have here, again, is the distal segment moves first. So she's going to first flex her fingers as we go through this. All right, go ahead. And then go ahead and bend the elbow. Perfect. We'll do that just a couple times so she gets the movement down. Go ahead and flex your fingers and go back into place as you come down. Perfect. Awesome. So now that we've taught her the movement, we are going to walk her. She's going to do the movement on her own while we add resistance to it. So go ahead. Good. Go ahead again. Just do it 3 times. Perfect. And that should be good right there. So that is upper extremity D1 at the start. At the end, again, the movements are the opposite. So the shoulders will be flexed, adducted, externally rotated, elbow flexed at the end, wrist supinated at the end, and radial deviated, and then the fingers flexed at the end. So our next movement is going to be our D2 for the upper extremity. So at the start, what we want is the shoulder extended, but at a neutral position. So it's going to be down like this, and then adducted, almost as if your hand was by your pocket. Next, we're going to want some internal rotation. Elbow is flexed, which is good. That's the natural position at this point. Wrist is pronated, perfect. And then radial deviation, so we're going to bend thumb side, perfect. Fingers flexed. So what we're doing with this, that's extended, flexed, perfect. What we're doing with this movement, what it kind of looks like is if you were unsheathing a sword and throwing it out. So we're going to go ahead and rock through that movement, perfect. And flexing, perfect. All right, now that we've walked her through the movement a few times, we're going to add resistance while she does it on her own. So go ahead. Perfect. Back again. One more. Perfect. And that is upper extremity D1 and D2.